Hi everybody, my name is Robin Dolezal. This is Alex Pars. We are with Ironwood Financial. In today's video, we want to talk to you about our philosophy.
So what we want to talk about today is our philosophy and really boil it down to its basics. And the old saying, that we like to follow is best bang for the buck. Okay, and we mean that in a lot of ways. Most importantly, risk versus expected return. Our goal is to try to minimize risk while get you the best possible return that you can get, or make sure that you are doing that. So many people who come in, they have no idea of what risk they're taking. They look at their portfolio, they can tell you historical numbers, they can tell you how things have done in the past, but they don't know what their risk is. Most people, when they talk about investments, that's all they talk about is returns. We focus on risk, okay? Because you can go out and buy lottery tickets, and yeah, if you're one of those lucky few that win, well, sounds great. I should tell all my friends to do the same thing. Well, guess what's going to happen to your friends? They're not going to win too because the risk is so high. So, best bang for the buck for us primarily means get the best return for the amount of risk. If you're going to take more risk, maybe that's fine, but let's make sure we optimize those returns and we're not making stupid decisions. To that end, there's a lot of things that we need to make sure that we're taking into account, like tax efficiency, fees. Don't go out and buy a bunch of expensive products that are just good for your broker. Make sure that they make sense for you.
The next thing we want to talk about is education. Make sure that when you sit down with an advisor, you sit down with us, we want to make sure that you're educated, that make sure that you understand what your statements say. We want to talk about you understand our philosophy. It doesn't make any sense for you to sign on to a portfolio that you don't know or understand when it comes to risk, when it comes to fees, things like that. We want to make sure that you understand your financial plan. We want you to understand, why am I doing this? Why am I pulling money out of this account as opposed to this account?
Yeah, and you need to be able to understand also the alternatives. Whenever we sit down with someone, we tell them, there's this way to do it, there's this way to do it, and there's this way to do it. We recommend this way, and here's why. Okay? So when you come up to someone on the golf course or at the water cooler and they say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and they tell you, oh, you got to hear about this thing I saw on the internet, you can say, well, we talked about that, and these are some things that didn't sound so good to me, so... Or maybe you love it, and the internet's where you find all great information. Education is paramount. You can't make a good decision unless you know what the facts are. Okay, so we try to provide as many facts as we can before anyone signs on with us.
That's right.
Next thing we want to talk about is our investment philosophy. This is something that's obviously very important to many of our clients, and what we do is we follow a version of modern portfolio theory, which is a very popular investment philosophy. Again, it's all about maximizing your return versus your risk. But one thing that we do differently is we look at what the output is that the computer spits out. As an example, we plug in a portfolio, they say you need to put this much here, this much here, this much here, so on and so forth, and then you do that and your portfolio is optimized. Well, it's optimized for historical statistics. Okay, remember, the world changes. Okay, so we look at something like, for example, it might recommend an allocation to long-term bonds. Let's say it's 10% to 30-year bonds. I don't want to buy any 30-year bonds right now. Interest rates are so low, there's so much risk in putting our money there, and there's no reward for it. So we might eliminate that asset class depending on what's going on in the world. And frankly, it makes sense. Whereas statistically, the computer might disagree with you. They're looking at the average. They're not looking at individual points in time to optimize the portfolio. So you really need to use your brain and make sure that your portfolio is optimized both statistically and artistically.
And for today's markets and for today's economy.
Exactly right. And you need to change that as time goes on, which brings up the next important part of our philosophy, which is
service. The next thing we would want to talk about is service. We pride ourselves on service, and the reason we pride ourselves on service is because it's so important to see our clients and talk about what's going on with their portfolio, what's going on in the market, and what's going on in the economy. We've seen so many people who we ask, when was the last time you talked to your advisor? And they don't actually have an answer. They may say, oh, I don't know, it's been a couple of years. That doesn't make any sense. Things change all of the time. So we want to make sure that we're talking about all of those different changes, whether it's in your life or just in the world itself.
And you need to change your portfolio, change your strategy, change your financial plan when the world changes. Do you think going through 2008, 2009, and then letting it sit for the next 5 years is a good strategy? No, it's not. Things are different. Okay? So again, our philosophy, very simply summarized, best bang for the buck. Make sure you're as efficient as possible when it comes to costs, when it comes to returns, everything.
Taxes.
Taxes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, there's lots of different investment philosophies out there. We can show you why we like ours. You can consider whether you prefer that to something else.
Right. Education, again, is important. Make sure we talk about all the different ways we can invest money, and then we can show you why we chose this way as opposed to that way.
And then, of course, keep on top of your plan. Keep on top of your situation.
Keep it serviced.
Things changed.
Right. As always, thanks for watching. This is Robin Dolezal and Alex Pars from Ironwood Financial. Obviously, we've got other resources on our site, Facebook. We've got a webinar. We've got an ebook. All sorts of great resources for you to watch.
Thanks for watching.